Alright, you guys, welcome back to the Sex and the City series. This is the last chapter for the night. And just before I begin reading this chapter, I want to say that I was looking at my videos, and it's crazy. Like, you guys, I'm almost at 1,000 videos here on YouTube. And, of course, the 1,000th video that I do is going to be the video where I show you guys my views, how many subscribers I have, and of course how many videos, and give you an update from the last time I did, because I did an update a few months ago on where my views were, and now it's gone up so tremendously, so I can't wait to tell you guys how much it's gone up. So, it's crazy, huh? Alright, so we're going to continue on with tonight's last chapter, and this is Clueless in Manhattan. And like I said, if you are seeing this chapter and you have no clue of what's going on, if you have not heard me read half of the chapters in this book, go back on my YouTube channel and check out Sex and the City from chapter 1, and you guys will know and surely be caught up on what's going on. Usually I entertain you guys a little bit with some music as well, but I don't know where my CD went, so for now I couldn't entertain you guys with that, but yeah. Really, is this it? Oh, and look, and I found it under a whole bunch of stuff. Crazy. Hold on just a sec, you guys. Oh, sorry you guys. Oh my god. I just, I can't believe I did that. I just got an email. Someone asked me to go have a beer with them later, and I'm like, yay. Sorry, I, for like a split second, forgot I was on camera. That's terrible. Anyway, this is Clueless in Manhattan, chapter 16, you guys. There are worse things than being 35, single and female in New York, like being 25, single and female in New York. It's a rite passage few women would want to repeat. It's about sleeping with the wrong men, wearing the wrong clothes, having the wrong roommate, saying the wrong thing, being ignored, getting fired, not being taken seriously, and generally being treated like shit. But it's necessary. So if you've ever wondered how 35-year-old single New York women get to be, well, 35-year-old single New York women, read on. A couple of weeks ago, Carrie ran into Cece, a 25-year-old assistant to a flower designer at the Louis Vuitton party. Carrie was trying to say hello to 5 people at once when Cece materialized out of the semi-darkness. "Hi," she said, and when Carrie glanced over at her, she said hi again. Then she just stared. Carrie had to turn away from a book editor when she was talking to. "What, Cece?" she asked. "What is it?" "I don't know. How are you?" I'm fine. Fabulous," Carrie said. "What have you been up to?" "The usual." The book editor was about to talk to someone else. "Cece, I haven't seen you for so long," Cece said. "I miss you. You know I'm your biggest fan. Other people say you're a bitch, but I say no. She's one of my best friends, and she's not like that. I defend you." "Thanks." Cece just stood there, staring. "How are you?" Carrie asked. "Great," Cece said. "Every night I get dressed all up to go out, and no one pays attention to me, and I go home and cry." "Oh, Cece," Carrie said. "Then don't worry about it. It's just a phase. Now listen, I have to..." "I know," Cece said. "You don't have time for me. It's okay. I'll talk to you later." And she walked away. Cece York and her best friend, Caroline Everhart, are 25-year-olds who, like most now 25-year-olds, came to New York to have careers. Caroline Everhart is a nightlife writer for a downtown publication. Came here from Texas 3 years ago. She's one of those girls with a beautiful face, who is just a bit overweight but not concerned about it, at least not to the point that she'd ever let you think she was. Cece is the opposite of Caroline. Blonde, bone-thin, with one of those oddly elegant faces that most people don't notice because she isn't convinced that she is beautiful. Cece works as an assistant to Yorgi, the acclaimed yet reclusive flower designer. Cece came to New York a year and a half ago from Philadelphia. Back then, I was like a little Mary Tyler Moore, she says. I actually had white gloves stashed in my purse. For the first 6 months, I didn't even go out. I was too scared about keeping my job. And now, we're not nice girls. Nice is not a word you would apply to us, Cece says, in an East Coast drawl that manages to be sexy and apathetic. We mortify people all the time, Caroline says. Caroline is known for her temper tantrums, Cece says, and Cece doesn't talk to people, she just gives them dirty looks. Arabian Nights. Caroline and Cece are best friends through the usual conduit of bonding female friendship in New York, over some jerky guy. Before she met Cece, Caroline met Sam, 42, an investment banker. Caroline kept running into him every time she went out. Sam had a girlfriend, a Swiss girl who was trying to get into broadcasting. One night, Sam and Caroline saw each other at Spy and they were drunk, and they started making out. They ran into each other another night and went back to Sam's place and had sex. This happened a couple more times. Then his girlfriend got deported. Nevertheless, the relationship continued along the same lines. Every time Caroline and Sam ran into each other, they would have sex. One night, she saw him at a system and gave him a hand job in the corner. They went outside and had sex behind a dumpster in an alleyway. Afterwards, Sam zipped up his pants, kissed her on the cheek, and said, "Well, thanks a lot. I'll see you later." Caroline started throwing trash at him. "I'm not through with you, Samuel," she said. I have to respond to this real quick. I'm shocked. Alright. A couple weeks later, Cece was at Casa La Femme when she saw two guys she knew. A third guy was with them. He was dark and he was wearing a thin white button-down shirt and khakis. Cece could tell that he had a great body. He seemed shy and Cece began flirting with him. She just gotten her hair cut and she kept brushing her bangs out of her eyes and looking up at him while sipping a glass of champagne. They were all going to some girl's birthday party at a loft in Soho. They asked Cece to go with them. They walked. Cece kept giggling and bumping into the guy, and at one point he put his arm around her. "How old are you?" he asked. 24. "Perfect age," he said. "Perfect for what?" Cece asked. "Me," he said. "How old are you?" Cece asked. 36, he said, lying. The party was crowded. Beer in a keg, vodka and gin in plastic glasses. Cece had just turned around from the bar and was about to take a sip of beer when she saw an apparition barreling towards her from the other side of the loft. A large girl with long dark hair wearing red lipstick and, rather inexplicably, a long dress, if you can call it that, Cece thought, that appeared to be made of flowered saffron scarves. Arabian Nights. The guy turned as if she was about to run into him. "Caroline," he said, "love your dress." "Thanks, Sam," Caroline said. "Is that new designer you were telling me about?" Sam asked. "The one who was going to make you a bunch of dresses for free if you wrote about him?" He smirked. "Would you shut up?" Caroline screamed. She turned around to Cece. "Who are you, and what are you doing at my birthday party?" "He invited me," Cece said. "So you just accept invitations from other girls' boyfriends, huh?" "Caroline, I'm not your boyfriend," Sam said. "Well, yeah, you just slept with me about 20 times. What about last time, that hand job at System?" "You gave someone a hand job at a club?" Cece asked. "Caroline, I have a girlfriend," Sam said. She got deported, and now you can't keep your greedy little hands off me. She's back, Sam said. She's living in my apartment. You have a girlfriend? Cece asked. You mortify me, Caroline said to Sam. Get out and take your cheap little slut with you. You have a girlfriend? Cece asked again. She kept repeating it all the way down the stairs until they were out on the street. 2 weeks later, Caroline ran into Cece in the bathroom at a club. I just wanted to tell you that I saw Sam, Caroline said, applying red lipstick. He got down on his hands and knees and begged me to go back to him. I said I was beyond. Beyond what? Cece said, pretending to check her mascara in the mirror. Did you fool around with him? Caroline asked. She snapped the top back on her lipstick. No, Cece said. I don't fool around with anybody. Sure enough, Caroline and Cece became best friends. I hate Miami. Carrie met Cece around this time last year at a brewery bar. Carrie was sitting at one of the booths. It was kind of late when she kind of fucked up. And this girl bounced over and said stuff like, You're my idol. You're so beautiful. Where did you get your shoes? I love them. Carrie was flattered. I want to be your best friend, Cece said, in a voice that rubbed up against her like a cat. Can I be your best friend? Please? Now listen, Cece. Cece, Carrie said, a little sternly. It just doesn't work that way. Why not? Because I've been in New York for 15 years. 15 years and... Oh, Cece said, slumping. But can I call you? I'm going to call you. And then she bounced over to another table, sat down, turned around, and waved. A couple of weeks later, Cece called Carrie. You've got to come to Miami with us. I hate Miami. I will never step foot in Miami, Carrie said. If you ever call me again and mention Miami, I will hang up. You are just so funny, Cece said. In Miami, Cece and Caroline stayed with some rich guy friends, Caroline's, from the University of Texas. On Friday night, they all went out and got drunk, and Cece made out with one of the Texas guys, Dexter. But she got annoyed at him the following night when he followed her around, putting his arm around her, trying to kiss her, like they were a couple or something. Let's go upstairs and fool around. He kept whispering in her ear. Cece didn't want to, so she sort of started ignoring him, and Dexter stormed out of the house. He came back a couple of hours later with a girl. Hi, y'all, he said, giving Cece a wave as he passed by the living room on his upstairs with the girl. The girl gave him a blowjob, then came downstairs, and Dexter made a great show of writing down her phone number. Cece ran out of the house screaming and crying just as Caroline was spinning up the driveway in a rental car. She was also screaming and crying. She'd run into Sam, who just happened to be in Miami as well, and she had wanted her to have a menage a trois with some blonde stripper bimbo. And when Caroline said, "Fuck off," he pushed her down on the sand at South Beach and said, "The only reason I ever went any place with you was because we were always getting our pictures taken at parties." It's pretty brutal. See where we're at here. 2 weeks later, Caroline ended up in the Page 6 gossip column. She went to some party at the tunnel, and when the doorman wouldn't let her in, she started screaming at him. He tried to escort her to a cab. She punched him. He wrestled her to the ground, and the next day she made the publisher of the downtown publication she worked for call up the tunnel and try to get the guy fired. And then she called up Page 6. When the item came out, she bought 20 copies of the paper. Then Cece got kicked out of the apartment she was sharing with a lawyer from Philadelphia. The older sister of one of her high school friends, the woman said, "Cece, you've changed. I'm really worried about you. You're not a nice person anymore, and I don't know what to do." Cece yelled at her that she was just jealous, then just moved to Caroline's couch. Around that time, an unfortunate item came out about Carrie in one of the gossip columns. She was trying to ignore it when Cece called up all excited. "Oh my God, you're famous," she said. "You're in the papers. Have you read it?" Then she began reading it, and it was awful. So Carrie started screaming at her. "Let me explain something. If you want to survive in this town, never, ever call anybody up and read something terrible about them from the papers. You pretend you never saw it, okay? And if they ask you if you did, you lie and say, 'No, I don't read trash like that,' even though you do. Get it? Jealous, Cece? She said. Whose side are you on here? Cece started crying, and Carrie hung up the phone and felt guilty afterward. Mr. Residue. I'm going to introduce you to a guy, and I know you're going to fall in love with him, but don't, Caroline said to Cece. So she did. Ben was 40, a sometime restaurateur and party promoter who'd already been married twice. In fact, he was still married, but his wife had gone back to Florida, and been in and out of rehab a dozen times. Everyone in New York knew about him, and when his name came up, people would roll their eyes and change the subject. After all his drinking and coke snorting, he still possessed a residue of what he was before. Charming, amusing, handsome, and Cece fell in love with the residue. They spent 2 great weekends together, even though they never actually had sex. Then they went to a party. He disappeared, and Cece found him rubbing up against a 16-year-old model who had just came to town. You're disgusting, she screamed. Oh, come on, he said. You've got to let me live out my fantasies. I have a fantasy of being with a 16-year-old. He grinned, and you could see that his teeth needed to be rebonded. The next morning, Cece turned up uninvited at his apartment. His 3-year-old daughter was visiting. I brought you a present, she said, acting like nothing had happened. The present was a baby bunny. She put it on the couch and it peed several times. Meanwhile, Caroline sort out moved in with Sam. She kept her apartment, but spent every night at his and always left something. Shoes, perfume, earrings, dried clean blouses, 6 or 7 different kinds of face cream behind. This went on for 3 months. The night before Valentine's Day, he exploded. I want you out, he said. Out! He was screaming and breathing heavily. I don't get it, Caroline said. There's nothing to get, Sam said. I just want you and your stuff out of here now. Sam cranked open a window and began throwing her things out. Caroline said, I'll fix your wagon, Buster, and she smacked him hard across the back of his head. He turned around. You hit me, he said. Sam, she said. I can't believe you hit me. He began backing across the floor. Don't come near me, he said. He cautiously reached down and picked up his cat. Sam, Caroline said, walking toward him. Stay back, he said. He grabbed the cat under its armpit so its legs were sticking straight out at Caroline. He held it up like a weapon. I said, get back. Sam, Caroline shook her head. This is so pitiful. Not to me, Sam said. He hurried into the bedroom, cradling the cat in his arms. She's a witch, isn't she, Puffy? He asked the cat. A real witch. Caroline took a few steps toward the bed. I didn't mean... You hit me, Sam said in a weird little boy voice. Don't ever hit me. Don't hit Sam no more. Okay? Caroline said cautiously. The cat struggled out of Sam's arms and ran across the floor. Here, kitty, kitty, Caroline said. See me, your kitty? Want some milk? She heard the TV click on. He was so mortified. Carrie was always promising Cece and Caroline that she'd have dinner with them, so one day she finally did, on a Sunday night. Her only free night, Caroline and Cece were sitting back on the banquet, their legs crossed, staring at their drinks, and looking very smart. Caroline was talking on the cellular phone. I have to go out every night for my job, Cece said, sounding bored. I'm just so tired all the time. Caroline flipped her cellular phone closed and looked at Carrie. We've got to go to this party tonight, downtown. Lots of models. You should come, she said, in a tone that suggested she definitely should not. Well, how is everything, Carrie said. You know, like Sam and... Everything is fine, Caroline said. Cece lit a cigarette and looked off in another direction. Sam went around telling everyone that he and Caroline had never slept together, even though tons of people had seen them making out. So we mortified him. We found out he started seeing this girl who has diseases. So I called him up and I said, Sam, please, as a friend, promise me you won't sleep with her, Caroline said. Then we saw the two of them at this brunch place. We were dressed to the nines. They were wearing sweatpants. We went up to them and they asked us for a cigarette and we said, a cigarette? Oh, please, get one from the waiter. We sat right next to them. Unintentionally, they kept trying to talk to us and Caroline kept making calls on her cell phone. Then I said, Sam, how's that girl I saw you with last week? He was so mortified. We sent him a note saying, herpes simplex 19. Is there a herpes simplex 19, Carrie asked. No, Cece said. Don't you get it? Right? Carrie said. She didn't say anything for a minute while she took a long time to light a cigarette. Then she said, "What is wrong with you?" "Nothing," Cece said. "The only thing I care about is my career. Like you, you're my idol." Then the two girls looked at their watches and each other. "Do you mind?" Cece said. "We have to go to this party." Alright, you guys, and that is the end of that chapter. So I'm going to leave you guys off with, since I finally found it, which should have been played at the very beginning of the show, but I couldn't find it. So to end the show out, I'm going to play the theme song. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to tonight's Sex and the City series. And comment, let me know what you think. And stay tuned for another episode coming up real soon. So here we go, you guys. Here's the outro. Next time, you guys.